All right, welcome to Rewatch or Return, the podcast where we put movies through the ultimate test across 10 universal categories to decide, does it call for a definite rewatch, a definite trip to the return bin, or does our subjectivity cause it to fall somewhere in between? This week I'm going to do something that I'm probably not going to do on a regular basis. We're going to hit Superman 2025. Now, I know we got Superman 78 last week, and I feel a little bit odd doing back-to-back Superman, but I thought, why not go ahead and just, while it's in the height of its time, it's the second weekend that it's out. This will be the Monday after its second weekend. Why not take the first big theatrical Superman movie from last week and then roll right into the latest one this week? It'll be probably handle it a little bit different. Some of these categories will hit a little bit different just because of what they are. The fact that this is not an older movie that can the idea of some of these categories may have to change a little bit, but this will be a little bit more of a review with these categories rather than kind of the way that it has been the past few episodes. I'll preface this by saying, one, if you have not seen the movie, here's your warning now. There will be spoilers. And two, if you have come here, I know the drama surrounding everything with the different Superman and people having problems and whatever. This is not a place, you're not going to get drama from me out of movies. I'm a movie lover, and I think that art is subjective. And so if you're coming here expecting me to be completely and totally negative about everything because it's not because it's not Zack Snyder and it's not Henry Cavill, you come to the wrong place. And if you've come here expecting me to be completely positive about everything because it's James Gunn and a new iteration of things, then you've come to the wrong place as well. I'm a fan of all of it, and if you're not, then that's totally fine. But you have no reason to come tell me all of the hateful things that you feel about these directors and your problems with how things have panned out thus far. This is just a place for fun. This whole entire podcast is for fun. It is not a place where I am trying to get into the mud with any, this is better than that, and I don't like this because I like that better, and all the nonsense that happens online with all this stuff. So I'm just going to say that at the forefront of all this. Take your negativity and your hateful thoughts and things somewhere else if that's what you're coming here to do. With that being said, let's get into the beginning of our look at Superman 2025. Reminders, spoilers ahead. First, let's get into Fast Forward Facts, where we just give you a little bit of rundown, kind of the history and some things, some interesting stuff and some facts about the film. So, the Man of Steel is back. But this time, it's not a reboot, it's not a sequel, and not connected to the Snyderverse. Superman 2025 is the launch pad for a bold new DC universe led by James Gunn, and it's got a lot riding on its red-caped shoulders. Officially titled Superman, no legacy, no returns, this film aims to reintroduce Kal-El not as a god among men, but as a hopeful, grounded hero trying to balance his Kryptonian legacy with his human heart. Let's start with the man behind the cape. David Cornsweet, best known for his roles in Pearl and The Politician, steps into the iconic suit, becoming the first new Superman in over a decade. And yes, fans were quick to point out that his uncanny resemblance to a young Henry Cavill, but Cornsweet brings a lighter, more classic charm to the role than Cavill did. Think more of a Christopher Reeve than sort of the brooding anti-hero or something like that. Behind the camera, none other than writer, director, and now DC head James Gunn. Fresh off the emotional high of a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 film, this new chapter was written and directed by Gunn, promising a blend of sincerity, humor, and heart. Gunn has said that Superman's story isn't about origin, it's about identity. A Superman who's already flying, but still figuring out how to be both Clark Kent and the world's greatest hero. The supporting cast is stacked. Rachel Brosnahan, Miss Maisel herself, plays Lois Lane, bringing wit, intelligence, and fearless energy to the Daily Planet newsroom. We've also got Nicholas Hoult taking on Lex Luthor, this time as a colder, more calculating villain than past portrayals. Add in Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, and even Metamorpho. And suddenly, this isn't just a Superman film, it's a cosmic stage setter for DC's all-new universe. Now, here's a fun fact. This is the first Superman movie to be filmed entirely under the new DC studios, the new unified creative vision that they have. It's not part of a previous DC extended universe. It's part of something new, and what James Gunn is calling Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, a fresh slate for interconnected storytelling, a la Marvel Phase 1. And if you're wondering about the cape, it's still there, it's still red, it's still iconic, but the suit has been redesigned to reflect a more retro, comic-accurate vibe and complete with trunks, textures, and a color palette pulled straight from the pages of the Golden Age Superman. It's a mix of nostalgia and modern practicality, and no, there's no mustache to digitally remove this time. Cough, cough, Joss Whedon. Production was a global affair, with much of the filming done in Georgia, though Gunn made sure to use practical sets and locations over green screen whenever possible. In a time when many superhero films are criticized for their flat digital sheen, Superman 2025 stands out for trying to keep things tangible, even when we're talking about flying aliens and impossible technology. And speaking of impossible, let's talk pressure. This movie isn't just a new take on Superman, it's reintroducing hope in a superhero storytelling. After a decade of dark tones, fractured timelines, and behind-the-scenes drama, DC fans are finally being offered a clean slate. No baggage, just story. So whether you're in it for heroics, the legacy, or the curiosity of what the new guys in charge can do with the most iconic superhero in pop culture, Superman 2025 is more than just a new take, it's a reset. And maybe, just maybe, the start of something super again. Next, let's move on to what the critics said. This is where we look at the first top 10, or the first, whatever, top 10 for the first 10 top critics for reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie, as the last time that I saw, it's changed a little bit, but the last time that I looked, had a tomato meter of 83%, which is pretty solid, and a popcorn meter of 92%. So your critics are 83% positive on it, and your regular old audience folk are 92% positive on it. The IMDb rating is 7.6 out of 10. This is what the critics said, starting off with Adam Kempenaar from Film Spotting. He says, I could never quite reconcile Gunn's glibness and goofiness with his sadistic streak. Okay. Sophie Butcher, Empire Magazine, says David Cornsweet takes on the blue and red mantle admirably, and glimpses of Gunn's signature sense of fun shine through. But a lack of humanity, originality, and cohesion means the movie around them just doesn't work. That's what Sophie said. Here's David Sexton from the New Statesman. This Superman is updated. It's brightly colored. It's top-level CGI, but it's still puerile. Manufacturing fun on this scale is hard work, even on a budget of $225 million. Then Coleman Spildy from Salon says, it is genuinely heartening to see a movie this massive refuse to shy away from how divided and broken our world is. Stephanie Zacharek from Time Magazine says, sadly, there's almost zero magic in Gunn's Superman. Its special effects are more overbearing than special. The plot is all problem-solving and no poetry. Next, you've got Mark Kermode. He says, it is a restarting and a return to the sort of visual style of the Richard Donner Superman from the 70s that we all loved. Dana Stevens from Slate says, in its modest way, this kind-spirited 2-hour-long romp works as a corrective to the increasingly bloated and self-serious comic book movie that we've all come to know. Sarah Michelle Fetters, almost said Sarah Michelle Gellar. Sarah Michelle Fetters from MovieFreak.com says Gunn delivers a fun, goofy, irreverent, and heartfelt motion picture overflowing with empathy and kindness. Adam Graham from Detroit News says, Gunn has plenty on his mind, but the movie doesn't congeal into a satisfying whole, leaving a mixed bag of comic book storytelling and modern commentary that isn't insightful or entertaining enough to get off the ground. Then Glenn Weldon from NPR says, it makes you want to cheer. That's it. That's the secret ingredient that's been missing from so many superhero stories for so long. And that is your top 10 what the critics said. And again, this is not me grabbing the ones that I want anybody to read or see. This is just simply me grabbing the first 10 on there. That's why I do it the way I do it. I don't want it to be me grabbing the reviews that I agree with. I just wanted to grab the first 10 that were there on the top critics. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. That's just how it goes. Moving on to first time or 50th. Now here's a segment that would typically be kind of the whole, hey, is this your first time seeing it or is your 50th time seeing it? This is not one that could be really a 50th time seeing it because this thing just came out last weekend. That being said, I have seen it twice. I went to see it Saturday of the opening weekend, and then I went and see it again the Wednesday after. On both of those viewings, I went in the first time. There's just been so much drama surrounding all this, and so much of it had nothing to do even with the movie itself. In many cases, it was stuff that rumors and, I think this might be in there, and I don't know, just kind of a bunch of nonsense that really bothers me about modern day media. Everybody's looking to sell hate and sell divisiveness and all that kind of stuff. That being said, me on two watches, the first time was kind of like drinking from a fire hose. So I had to go back and watch it again because I needed to have a chance to, better digest things and catch some things that I knew I missed the first time. So, yeah, I've seen this movie twice, and it was good enough the first time. I wanted to go back and see it. I'm generally not going to go back and see a movie a second time in the theater if I didn't have at least a good time with it the first time. Movies like this this is one I definitely needed to go in and kind of. I did the same thing with Indiana Jones. I watched it in 4DX with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I watched it in 4DX and I was like, I kind of want to just go watch it normal now because I don't know how the 4DX affected me. I don't know exactly what my thoughts are about it because I was being shook around the whole time and I had a really good time. It was like being on a fun ride, but I was like, now I need to go watch this movie for real without all the flashy stuff and decide how I feel about it. Now that I can throw my expectations aside because I don't have to worry about expectations now. I already know. That's kind of what I did with this. I went in with certain expectations, and some of them were met, some of them weren't. And I watched it in IMAX 3D, so the experience of IMAX and the experience of 3D, there's a funness to all that, but I needed to just go back and watch it like a normal movie in a normal everyday theater. To kind of really gather my thoughts on it. And so that's what I did. So yeah, I've seen this twice coming in. And then there's not a whole lot else to say about that other than that's why I've seen it twice. And I'm probably going to go see it a third time, to be honest with you. This coming week, I'll probably find time to go sit down and watch it again. I have enjoyed it that much. Next segment, to be continued. Would a sequel work for this film? And if there's a sequel, should there have been? Now, there's no sequel to this film because this is the brand new kickoff to a whole new universe. Granted, Peacemaker is kind of part of it already. Creature Commandos has already been in there, so there's already been some stuff come out that is a part of all this. But as far as from a theatrical standpoint, this is the kickoff to the new universe, and this is James Gunn kind of establishing the tone of the universe and vibe that this all is going to lean towards. So yeah, there's probably, I'm assuming, going to be a Superman 2. That seems to be a pretty clear thing. I don't know when that'll come. I think more than likely Superman will pop up in some other stuff beforehand. So as far as a direct sequel to this, I'm not sure. I don't know how all this is going to work. I don't know how they're going to play out this, universe. I don't know if what I'm saying is, if there's a sequel to this, I don't know that it'll feel like a direct sequel as opposed to just simply another movie with another bit of story that's not necessarily directly tied or dragging anything from the other into something new. I know Superman's supposed to be, I believe, in Supergirl, the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow movie, I think. But as far as sequels go, I could see a sequel. As far as it didn't set itself up for a sequel, but I mean, like, I could see them in a world where there's not a big world they're building out, and if this was just a standalone Superman and they weren't planning on doing anything else, I could see them going, okay, like, hey, that did well and yada yada, let's move into another, extending that, or see where he goes from here. But this being expected to have a fully built out universe with multiple movies and a 10-year plan and all that, then yeah, we're going to see sequels, whether it be kind of a bunch of characters tying together in maybe stuff that's not necessarily called Superman, but Superman's in it. You get what I'm saying. All right, before we jump into the final segment, today's episode is brought to you by PrepStartsNow.com, your go-to spot for emergency and outdoor preparedness. If you're anything like me, you'd rather be prepared and not need it than need the essentials and not have them. From 72-hour emergency essentials to camping gear, car emergency essentials, multi-tools, first aid, and even home gardening supplies as you start growing some of your own food, they've got you covered for all of it. And the best part is, as a listener, you can use a promo code REWATCH to get a 15% site-wide discount. And you'll also be helping out the show as they give us a small reward for your business in the process. Head to PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch. That's PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch, or simply enter the code REWATCH at checkout and get prepared today. All right, so usually this would be the section where I would recap scene by scene. But instead of that, I'm going to do a quick plot synopsis, kind of more along those lines instead, just to simply... I haven't had enough time, honestly, to like truly digest it all and go scene by scene, and I don't want to get things super out of order. So I'm just going to give you a quick sort of overall plot synopsis of the film, and then we'll move into the final verdict categories and sort of find out where that all lands. But quick plot synopsis. Basically, you meet Superman, he's hurt, so they show you that he's vulnerable, and there's some warring stuff between two countries. There's some Superman involvement between those warring countries. People are questioning whether or not that's right for him to get involved. You meet Lex. Lex is a really bad dude. He's portrayed as a really, 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 really bad dude in this, kind of extra evil. And the whole thing ends up essentially being about Clark deciding who he is. So Ultraman is introduced. Basically, Ultraman is the only one that can... Because he's Ultraman and he's a clone of Clark, you find out that that's why Lex is able to do certain things, because Ultraman is a clone of Clark. And that's why Clark has trouble with this other character who seems to be able to go toe-to-toe with him. But you find out that Lex is programmed this clone and has studied Superman, and so he knows his moves, and so he's actually calling out, almost like Battleship, he's calling out these moves for this clone to do to fight against Clark. So Clark's essentially fighting against two people in a way when he fights Ultraman. But you meet the Daily Planet crew. There's some involvement with Miss Teschmacher and Jimmy Olsen, which helps them show everybody that Lex is bad at the end. But it's really hard for me to really even give you a synopsis of this without going full scene by scene, because it's not... I'll go into this later, but there's not a lot of therefores and but this happens in this film. There's just kind of a lot of and then, like this happens and then this happens and then this happens and then this happens in a way. So the overall plot synopsis for this is Clark thinks he's sent here by his parents to do good and be a certain person for humanity. And then because of Lex and because of Lex's bad motives and goals, Clark finds out that that's not what happened. There's more to the message that he got from his parents. To come to find out, they wanted him to do some questionable things and immoral things and rule over the earth and some other stuff. So Clark is struggling with that through the whole movie and talks with his parents, and they're like, hey, this is because of what you wanted that message to mean. That shows who you really are. And so Clark fights Ultraman. Lois and the Mr. Terrific and them are doing some stuff over here to find out about what Lex was doing, and ultimately, because of Jimmy and because of Mr. Teschmacher, they find out that Lex was behind everything. So by the end of the movie, he fights Ultraman. He defeats Ultraman and Lex, and at the same time, Lex is portrayed now, and then they're able to print and post a news story with all the proof that they now have that Lex was behind everything. So it becomes a big deal where it starts out Lex is manipulating everything. By the end, Clark has learned that it's not about even really who your birth parents are, but it's about who you as a man have become and who you truly are. And then Lex, you find out by the end that Lex is everybody finds out that Lex is a bad guy. He's portrayed to the world as a bad guy. And that's kind of how it ends, as Clark realizing that, hey, I am more... I'm who I was raised to be by my earth parents. I'm not who my birth parents sent me here to be. And he comes to grips with his humanity and who he is and who he wants to be, and ultimately embraces the human side of himself over the Kryptonian side of himself. And that's kind of what the whole thing is about. You see a guy who's really kind, and we'll get into all that other stuff. I don't know what kind of synopsis that was. I tried to not go scene by scene, but at the same time, I feel like I just blabbed about it. So if you've seen the movie, then you get what I'm saying. If you haven't, it probably seems really confusing. But that was basically sort of a little quick rundown that's not super play-by-play. And we will now roll into the whole point and purpose of this, and that is the final verdict to put the film to the test across 10 categories, scored on a scale from 1 to 5. And that scale would look like this. 5 is excellent, outstanding, a strong highlight of the film. Good, which is 4. Solid, works well but not iconic. 3 is fair, adequate but nothing special. 2 is weak, flawed or inconsistent. 1 is poor, actively bad, annoying, or distracting. And let's move into the first category. That is story and plot. Is the narrative compelling and coherent? Does it still hold up on a rewatch? There's parts of this, story and plot-wise, that so Trey and Matt Parker from, I'm not a big South Park guy, but I've seen them talk about writing stories and how they craft and put things together. And I can't even remember who I was watching the other day, but they brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, I mean, like that does fit very well with this. But they talk about how when you write a story, if you're in your story realizing that you find yourself saying and then you're already on the wrong track. So if you've got two things, this happens here and this happens here, and in between, all you can really say is and then. So this happens and then this happens, you're on the wrong track. But if you're able to go, this happens, therefore this happens, but then this happens, then things have a rhyme and reason. And there's some of that in this. And then again, there's some therefore moments. There's some but then moments. But there's also plenty of and then moments where stuff just happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And so from a story and plot perspective, the overall narrative can get kind of messy at times. While it's not terrible, I think there has been better James Gunn writing. I I think there's been better James Gunn narratives. I think there's been more overall compelling stories written by James Gunn, which is why I wish that I wanted this to be a 5 out of a 5. I really did. With that being said, this came in at, I initially said I wasn't going to do decimals or fractions or whatever you want to call it, but it just doesn't feel right for me to go on the hard 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's going to start being this from now on. I'm going to start trying to place things exactly where I feel like they are. And with that said, this for story and plot came in at a 3.9 out of 5 for me. Which means if 4 is good, solid, works well, but not iconic, this is just a tick below that. So it's not like it's only fallen in the fair category for me, but there's some things about this overall story and plot that I feel like could have been done differently and much better. And because of that, I'm going to put this just a tick below 4, just a tick below good, solid, works well, and give it a 3.9 out of 5 for story and plot. Characters and performances would be the next category. Are the characters memorable and well acted, or forgettable and flat? This, if there's one thing that James Gunn is really good at, it is, which he's good at multiple things. If there's one thing that he's really good at, it is casting. And I think a lot of that comes from him choosing to not just cast somebody before they should be cast. He likes to write his stories. He likes to have a finished script before he casts somebody. Because then when your script is done, then you know I can cast this person and I know who I need for this role because I know what the role is because the script is done. Versus going, hey, we're going to do a Superman movie. That dude looks like Superman. Cast him as Superman, even though we don't have a script done and we don't even really know what the story's going to be and we really don't even know what kind of person we need to be able to play this role. James Gunn is really solid and really smart to, for the most part, most of the time, finish a script and then do his casting in large part. And that makes this work so well because this is so incredibly cast. Everybody is spot on for their role. David Cornsweet, I'll put him easily up there in the top 3 portrayals of Superman. I don't know where I don't feel like I could have anybody really top Christopher Reeve for me. But I'll say this. For what Zack Snyder's Superman tone was, for what he was going for, Henry Cavill was perfect for that. And for what James Gunn was going for, David Cornsweet is perfect for that. That being said, I would kind of tie Henry Cavill and David Cornsweet at 2. Nobody's going to top Christopher Reeve for me. The dude just, like, you're just not for me. I know that's not for everybody, but you're not for me. I'm going to tie these guys at 2 because I think you can't take David Cornsweet out of this movie and put him in Man of Steel. It wouldn't work. His portrayal of Superman wouldn't work. It'd be really weird. But you also at the same time couldn't take Henry Cavill out of Man of Steel and put him in this Superman movie. It wouldn't work. It couldn't work. It would feel really weird. So I'm going to bring those 2 guys as far as my all-time best portrayals of Superman. I'm going to tie those guys at 2. You may feel differently, but that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, that being said, Lois, Rachel Brosnahan, played a fantastic Lois. Really well. I wanted so much more of those 2 as Clark and Lois in scenes together, just talking. And that says a lot. For you to just simply want to see 2 people on camera together more. That says a whole lot about their portrayal of the character. Everybody does a solid job. I'm not going to go into the entirety of the cast, but I will say that for Clark, Lois, and Lex Luthor, so Nicholas Hoult does a fantastic Lex Luthor. At times it can be a little cartoony, but I think like that's totally fine for like the vibe of the movie. I don't mean cartoony, that may have been the wrong word, but at times it can seem a little like he's just like going a little bit too over the top with it, or like too over the top comic book villain, but at the same time, like, that's exactly the vibe of this movie, so it works. He's fantastic. He's very just straight evil. I don't mean playing evil in the way that Gene Hackman was evil, but still in a way likable. This is not a likable character in any way whatsoever. He's not likable at all. There's nothing likable about him. You want to hate everything about him. And kudos to Nicholas Hoult for stepping in and nailing that. So those three did fantastic. You've got a great Clark / Superman. You've got a great Lois. You've got a great Lex. Your Jimmy Olsen is fantastic. Your whole Daily Planet crew, they're great. The chemistry between those guys, they're fun. They're funny. Even Miss Teschmacher, she plays that perfect, like, just sort of silly, bubbly, almost thinks she's stupid, but she's really not stupid kind of thing. It's just all really well done. So yeah, the characters are memorable characters, and they're very well acted. They're not, to me, not forgettable, not flat at all. I know there's people that may feel different, but for what this movie is trying to do and the way these people portray these characters, I wanted more. If there's anything that I'll get into the pacing and entertainment value next, because that's going to have to do with the length of the movie and the way it was paced and all that. But I gave them a 4.5 out of 5 for characters and performance, because I thought, like, it was not, it's hard for me to just go straight 5 out of 5, but man, like, for the most part, this is a 4.5 out of 5 for me. So rolling into pacing and entertainment value, were you entertained the whole time? Did the movie keep your attention? Does it feel too slow, too rushed, or just right? I was entertained the whole time. Absolutely 100%. The movie kept my attention. Absolutely 100%. Does it feel too slow? Not at all. And that was a little bit of some of the problem, because the next thing, does it feel too rushed? It does feel too rushed. It feels like you're drinking from a fire hose, kind of. With the exception of like a couple of minutes here or there, it feels like they edited and cut this movie down to like almost the end of its life. Like, if you'd have cut too much more, this would have it had just been over. It's a 2-hour movie. It doesn't feel like a 2-hour movie. And the problem that I was left with this was, I want more. I want more of that character with that character. I want to see more of this. I want to see more of that. I think this movie could have been 30 minutes longer and really gave me what I wanted to see. Really fleshed some things out and let some things sit. And so, from a pacing and entertainment value, I'm giving it a 3.9 out of 5. Like I said, it's just a tick below good. And it's a tick below good because it's a fun movie. I enjoyed watching it. I don't have any complaints about, like, I didn't like the movie, but it was too quick, too rushed, and I had to go back the second time to catch some things and actually be able to digest some things and see some things that the first time everything happened so fast I couldn't even remember so much of it. So yeah, it was a little too rushed, and I wanted more of certain things and certain people, which is solid. It's good that I wanted more, but you left me wishing that I had more time in that particular film. And I don't mean like I'm wanting to see more of them later in a later movie. No, I meant like I'm watching this movie and I'm like, why didn't you show me more of that, or why didn't you give me more of this? So again, I'm giving this a 3.9 out of 5. It's a tick below good for me, but it's sitting literally like right there at good for pacing and entertainment value. Right there at good, but a tick below. Dialogue and quotability. Are there iconic or memorable lines? Do people still quote it? Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? Well, this is not an old movie, so people are not necessarily quoting it. I don't think. It says that they still quote it. I don't know if this is a real quotable movie. There's some things in this movie that are, I would say, there's some quotable lines. I mean, there's some stuff with Crypto where just Superman's overall who he is when he's talking to Crypto, and he's tore up the Fortress of Solitude, and he says, "What the hey, man?" Because like he's not gonna say anything bad. It's his nerdy kind of sort of old school self and Boy Scout that he is. He says, "What the hey, man?" Well, I could see something like that being like a thing. The lines that he says when he's fighting the kaiju, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, eyes up here." I can see something like that being a quotable type of the deal. I can see, the line, the stuff at the end where the stuff with his dad when he talks to him about who he is and what that means, that he wanted the message to be, that what he thought the message from his parents was and what he wanted that to be is more important than, because it's always like who you are, your choices, or what make you who you are, what you do, and is what makes you who you are, not what somebody sent you here to do. So there's some of that can be maybe a little quotable. The lines at the end where he's talking to Lex and about his humanity and all that kind of stuff. So there's some quotable stuff, or some stuff that you can pull back, or some stuff that I think people are going to remember and maybe say, but this is not one of those like comedy, quotable, funny line things for the most part. The dialogue feels natural to a comic book movie that's supposed to be basically a comic book brought to life. And I don't mean comic book brought to life in that it's a comic book movie in a live action setting. I mean, this is literally like you open a comic book and it popped off the page and hit the TV and is now live action. So it's like it is a literally comic book movie brought to life in live action, or a comic book brought to life in live action. It's like watching a comic book, I guess is what I'm getting at. So you could say that some things don't feel natural or maybe feel cringy if you weren't watching that kind of movie. But because the kind of movie this is, it does feel natural and it doesn't feel cringy for what the movie's supposed to be. So dialogue and quotability for me, I gave it a 3.9, just a tick below good. I'm trying to not go with straight down the board round numbers for this, for a lot of this, because I don't feel like being right on the nose with some of those round numbers. They put me in places I don't want to be. So dialogue and quotability, 3.9, just a tick below good, but basically right there. Soundtrack and score. Does the music enhance the film or date it? Does it elevate the emotional tone of the film or feel out of place? Is it iconic or generic? This is a tough one for me. This is one I struggle with because obviously when all the press stuff came out and all the previews and stuff came out, you had the John Williams score being put in there. And it was a little different version of it, but it was still those same notes. And so you were drawn in by the ultimate Superman theme. That's what it is. So I expected going into this movie, I'm going to get a lot of John Williams theme. It's going to be done with electric guitars or maybe a little different, whatever. But I'm going to get, essentially, I felt like I'm going to get the John Williams theme through the whole movie. And I didn't. So I was disappointed about that. Even in the moments when they did bring it in for a big epic moment, I don't feel like they went big enough with it. That bothered me. Other times, it just kind of felt, like, it felt like what they did musically could have been bigger, could have been more epic, especially being this comic book movie. It just felt bleh to me, like, this is the time that you bring in the music and really just rip my heart out or freaking jack me up and get me excited and pumped. And like, there's moments where it fell flat for me musically. So for soundtrack and score, I am giving this a 3 out of 5. It's just kind of right there in the middle. It's just kind of fair overall. There's some good moments. I wanted them to be better. For a movie like this, that you're going to bring in the old school John Williams score, man, you should have went big with it. You should have just went like, And I'm not saying that James Gunn's fantastic when it comes to needle drops. He knows his music, to bringing music in and having a moment where music kicks off and a song kicks off or whatever. There's a couple of those, but I personally I would rather have a score for the movie than I would have you bring me pop songs into a Superman movie and play during the film at any point. So there's just some things about this from a soundtrack and score perspective that wasn't my favorite. So I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. It's kind of mid for me, fair. Moving on to cinematography and visual style. Is it visually engaging or stylish, regardless of effects, budget, or genre? Do the camera work and effects still impress, or do they look dated or clunky? Well, it's not going to look dated for sure because it's brand new. We got to talk at camera works and effects impressing, visually engaging or stylish. So this movie, a lot of people will watch this movie. I wasn't 100% sure, but I knew they were trying to do things as practically as possible. A lot of folks will watch this movie and think that it is just like CGI. It was computer generated to no end, is what a lot of people are going to think. But in reality, they shot as much of this practically as possible. Even the flying scenes where Superman's flying at the beginning of the movie out of this Fortress of Solitude and he's flying back to Metropolis and he's swerving and swooshing through the mountains and all that. They have essentially a volume screen created like they would with the Mandalorian, this new kind of gaming visual technology that they have. They have him set up essentially in a volume, though they shot the plates beforehand, and he is on a rig, and they have a camera behind him, so they're in real time. What you see in the movie is not fake green screen crap in front of him. It is him on a harness rig, leaning forward like he's flying, and they've got the cameraman standing over him from behind him, and he is shooting over David's shoulder. You see the back of his head and his back and stuff. And what's in front of him that you are seeing is a plate on the volume captured in camera in real time. So there's a lot of really good practical stuff in this, and it does look really good. There's really one moment that I didn't like. For the most part, I thought what they did with it, what it was, the way that they fit it into this comic booky look thing. I mean, it was very stylish. It was very James Gunn. It was very, like I said, comic book popped off the page and landed on a big screen. So even when things are totally unrealistic and you know it's computer generated, it works because of what it is. It's not. It didn't feel so outlandish because, again, you're supposed to be in a comic book world. There's one scene where the lighting on David Cornsweet's face is like really bad, and it's only for a split second. I can't remember exactly which part of the movie it is. I think it's either with a fight. It's either when he's fighting the Hammer of Baravia there at the beginning of the movie, which is also Ultraman in the suit, or later when he's actually fighting Ultraman outside the suit, the Hammer of Baravia suit. It's in one of those moments, but it's one of those, big fight scenes between them two. And there he kind of turns back to the camera, and it's a real close-up on his face, and it looks pretty bad. The lighting is really bad and totally unrealistic for the atmosphere or his surroundings. It's like that's clearly not the light that's meant to be in that setting at the time. So there's one scene that's really bad from a lighting perspective, but for the most part, I didn't think there was really anything wrong with this. I think that, like I said, it was very James Gunn, very James Gunn style. It was very visually engaging. It was everything pops, and there's nothing. It keeps you visually engaged for sure. Like I said, it's James Gunn's style, and it is very stylish in the approach. So, James Gunn aside, this is a movie that is meant to be a comic book vomited up onto the screen. And so it's perfectly stylish for what it's expected to be. The camera work is great. The effects, for the most part, like I said, are really solid. They don't really look clunky, and they definitely don't look dated. I mean, it's modern CG. So cinematography and visual style, I'm giving a 4 out of 5. Now, originality and creativity. Does the film feel fresh and inspired? Or like something you've seen 100 times? Was the film groundbreaking or formulaic? Does it bring something unique? The film absolutely does feel fresh and inspired. It feels like something totally new. I think that's why a lot of people are having trouble liking it when they go in, because they're going in and they're expecting a movie like they've seen before. Oh, I know what a Superman movie should be and looks like because I've seen the Chris Reeves stuff, or I've seen Zack Snyder stuff, or I've seen Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, or I've seen the New Adventures of Superman and Lois, and I've seen the TV stuff, and I've seen Smallville, and everybody has something that they've seen. They went into this expecting it to be a certain thing, and it is not what anybody really expected. And because of that, like, yes, it feels very fresh. It feels very inspired. Whether you like it or not, it is both of those things. It's not like something that I've seen 100 times, definitely. It is a total new approach and an attempt to not do the same thing over and over again. An attempt to do something different. And not for the sake of doing something different, but attempt to really dig into something new. Was groundbreaking? I don't know about groundbreaking. It's not formulaic. It doesn't feel like. It does bring something unique. So I gave this one, I think, like I said, James Gunn's a pretty original guy when it comes to like his stuff. He's not really a copycat. Say what you want about the guy. He's not a copycat. This is a pretty original and creative approach on making a Superman movie for sure, and a comic book movie in general. So originality and creativity, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Moving along to theme and message, is there a deeper takeaway, and does it explore ideas that resonate today? Well, like I said last week, it's hard to, if Superman is done right, and what I mean by that is, if someone properly portrays the character of Superman, then what you see is a person who values human life, who puts his life on the line for others, who loves people, and is willing to go to great lengths to save and protect, and even in the process of doing so, try not to even harm the thing that he's protecting others against, if he can help it, to too much of an extent. And because of that, the theme and message of this gets a 5 out of 5 for me this week, just like it does last week, because the theme and message of any Superman movie, if done right, is a message of love, a message of kindness, a message of caring for others and putting others first. And, you can't beat that. And I'm not even going to play around with trying to nuance anything less. It's getting a 5 out of 5 for me. This, in particular, where before you did get a very, for example, with Christopher Reeve, you got both. You got a little bit of all of it. With Zack Snyder's iteration, that hopeful feeling wasn't there. He really focused on the godlike aspect of Superman. And I'm not saying that he wasn't a Superman that cared about humanity and cared about people. But what I'm saying is there was a level of kind of Boy Scout kindness, no matter what, that wasn't quite there with the Zack Snyder stuff. And a hopefulness and a brightness and a positive, uplifting nature. Again, I'm not knocking the Zack Snyder stuff. I love it. But there were certain things that were missing. And you got a lot of that in this movie. You got the aw shucks kind of innocent Boy Scout. I heard someone describe it as almost like he comes across as like a guy that was like homeschooled or whatever and raised kind of maybe sheltered, and then shows up and he's like, why are you guys using bad language and why are people being mean to people? And like there's like an innocence to the way that he portrays this character, and he just simply like Lois says in the movie, like you see everybody as beautiful. And he like kind of comes back, they're talking about punk rock and her liking punk rock, and he's like, I'm punk rock, and she says that he's not, and she's like, I see everybody as cynical, or I'm cynical, and I question everybody and everything, and you just look at everybody and see everybody and everything as beautiful. And he's like, well, maybe that's the real punk rock. And that's cool. I mean, that's a cool line, and it's a different take. This is a dude who just wants to be kind. He just kind of, it's like, why can't everybody get along? Can we not all, like, it's like almost like that Jackie Moon from Semi-Pro, like ELE, everybody love everybody. But I mean, yeah, it's like what you want in a person. It's like what you want to be as a person, or you should. He's not affected by the cynicism of the world. And if you watch this film, if I take away a message from the film, it is showing a person, it's showing how radical in today's cynical, negative, everybody fighting everybody and hating everybody world, it's showing how radical it is simply to love people and be kind, because it truly is a radical notion in the world we live in. People can say otherwise. I've sat and had conversations with people who would talk like that's what they want to see, but then on the other hand are all over the internet bad mouthing and bashing and talking hateful about people and all this. And so that's the theme and message that really, really resonates, and I think is the commentary, if anything, that's being made in this film. And that is be the punk rock person now that does see the world differently and isn't constantly questioning everybody and everything, and seeing the bad in everything that you can, but like maybe open up your eyes and like look for the good in stuff, and in people, and see others as valuable and worth opening your heart for, and worth reaching out a hand and helping, if at all possible. Now, move on to cringe factor. Any jokes, effects, or moments that haven't aged well? Well, this is brand new, so like I said, some of these are going to come across a little different. Or were always bad, moments that make you wince now, campy, cheesy, bad effects, outdated jokes that aren't funny. Like I said, you got to consider the world that this is in, just like I did with Wicked. I could watch Wicked for what it was and say, hey, there's some stuff that I otherwise would call cringy, but because of what it is, I'm not going to. At the same time, with Wicked, I was like, this is still a musical set to The Wizard of Oz, so it's hard to skate out of it with no cringe whatsoever. And that's the same with this. It's a comic book movie. It's lick the comic book page and stick it to the screen. I mean, that's essentially what this was. So I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 when it comes to the cringe factor. I'm not giving it a 5 and say there's absolutely no cringe at all. There's definitely some cringe, but it is good cringe, and it fits. Like, you would expect there to be cringe moments, but they fit well, they feel right, they belong there. They're still cringy, but they belong in this film. So I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 because of that. Now, moving on to nostalgia and rewatchability. Does it hold up to your memory of it? Okay, that's one thing. Maybe my memory, like I said, some of these are going to have to be a little bit tweaked. Does it still matter today? Is it timeless? Has it aged poorly? Does a rewatch ruin the magic? Would you honestly watch it again? I watched it the second time. As far as holding up to your memory of it, I watched it 3 or 4 days later, and I enjoyed it more the second time. than I did the first time, because I knew what to expect the second time. I knew what I was getting into, for sure. Does it still matter today? I think, like I said, Superman movies done right are always going to matter. It's just, Superman is a character that's timeless and is going to matter. Is the movie timeless? I don't know that this is going to be a timeless film. So here's the difference, where Superman 78, I would say, is a timeless film. This is different. In the same way that I think Batman 89 is a timeless film, but you put Michael Keaton's Batman in Flash, while I love the Flash movie, and it's a movie that I could watch over and over and over and over and over again, it's not a timeless film. And this feels exactly the same, where I do think, like, I don't want to get too much into talking about other Superman movies, because I want to have some episodes later on where I can kind of compare and contrast things and differences between them and all that. So I'm trying not to get into talking too much about other films. But there's some other films that I might say are timeless, put it that way, involving Superman, or ultimately are going to find themselves being timeless later. But this one is not, I don't think, one of those, because it's not meant to be. Like, this is not an epic movie. It's not made to be some big epic thing. It is episodic in that it is like a quick episode of something. It's like I've told some friends, it's like you walked in and you say you got a comic series, and there's 24, issues. This movie's like walking in and picking up issue 12 and opening it up and just starting to read. And so you're like, there's a bunch of stuff back here, and I'm not really sure where this is going, but is it at least enjoyable in its confined episode here? And that's kind of what this was. It's an episodic film where you can go sit down and you can enjoy it for what it is, and it's fun. It's a good time. I think David Cornsweet has the definite potential to be a timeless portrayal of Superman, but this is not a timeless film in that it's a fun film, but it's not going to be one of those that I think is like this huge major cultural impact, timeless kind of things that people hold on to in a way that they would with Superman 78, and how it affected things and what it did for superhero movies and how it changed the game. This is, I could be different. I'm just not comfortable calling this a timeless yet, or even assuming that it's going to be a timeless film. It's a fun film. Does a rewatch ruin the magic? No. Again, I rewatched it and I liked it even better. Would you honestly watch it again? I kind of want to go watch it again this week. I have pulled it up. I've pulled up, clips on YouTube and anything that has been put out there for me to watch. And even after watching it 2 times, I've watched that stuff over and over again. So there's parts of this movie that I love, and then there's enough of it that I love that I want to see it a whole bunch. It's kind of like, there's movies that are going to win awards, and they're going to win Oscars and all this, and they're fantastic films from a story standpoint, from all of it. Just they are pure cinema, like just cinematic, whatever, masters of cinema. And at the same time, many of those movies I don't want to sit down and watch over and over again. For example, I think that Oppenheimer was fantastic. I don't want to see Oppenheimer over and over and over and over and over again, though it won, Academy Awards. It won an Oscar. It won Best Film, I believe, Best Picture. This is not going to do that. This is not going to be the award-winning film. But it's fun, and I will watch it over and over again. It's a movie that I'm going to probably watch regularly because it's fun. I want to watch something fun. I want to watch something exciting. I'm going to put it on, and I'm going to have fun with it. I'm going to get some popcorn, and I'm going to get some soda or some tea or whatever, and I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to have fun with it. And that's what this movie is. And that's fantastic because that's exactly what they were going for. He's not trying to make some award-winning film. They're trying to make good, fun stuff that keeps people coming back. And it's a good start. So nostalgia and rewatchability. I have nostalgia for the Superman character in general. So that's just how it is. I give this a 4 out of 5 for nostalgia and rewatchability. It's a movie, like I said, I will sit down with a lot. So, all that said, story and plot got a 3.9 out of 5. Characters and performances got a 4.5 out of 5. Pacing and entertainment value got a 3.9 out of 5. Dialogue and quotability got a 3.9 out of 5. Soundtrack and score, 3 out of 5. Cinematography and visual style, 4 out of 5. Originality and creativity, 4.5 out of 5. Theme and message, 5 out of 5. Cringe factor, 4 out of 5. Nostalgia and rewatchability, 4 out of 5. That equals 40.7 out of 50. This movie falls between the 40 and 50 of certified rewatchable. You can hate me if you're one that disagrees. I felt weird about this movie when I went in. I went in to watch it, and I couldn't figure out why I was struggling with my feelings about the film. Because it wasn't because I disliked it. And then I realized I'm struggling because I'm worried about those that aren't going to like this simply because it's not what they're used to. They aren't going to like. I thought, oh no, this has a lot of potential to not be liked by people who don't interpret it or gather that this is a Superman comic brought to the big screen. This is not somebody trying to make a movie set in our world. This is a movie set in a completely different fantastical world. And if you don't get that, then you're going to watch this and go, I didn't really like it, or I didn't care for it, I didn't understand it. And that's what happened to me watching it. I was like, man, I'm afraid this friend's not going to like it. I'm afraid this friend's not going to like it. And I don't know about this and that. And I'm afraid people are going to have problems with this. And not that affected me liking it, but I want people to like stuff. Especially being Superman. Like I said, I like all of them. I'm not the guy that hates this because it's not this and hates this because it's not this. Like, they're all different flavors to me. I don't need to hate grape because I kind of like strawberry too. You know what I mean? I can like strawberry and grape at the same time. One doesn't affect the other. And for those of you that think that that's the case, when it comes to somebody new playing a character that you want to see played by somebody different, then I don't know why that y'all are that way. I just wish you would let yourself enjoy something rather than having to be full of hate. And but I was worried about this. I went back the second time. I felt better. I understood some things differently. I could gather my thoughts and come to realize like what was causing me to have some internal struggle with this film. But that being said, I ultimately came away really, really, really liking it. I didn't like everything. It's not a perfect film. There's things that I would have done differently. There's changes I would made, or would have liked to see made, and some stuff that didn't quite do it for me. But overall, I really liked the film. I think it's totally rewatchable. At the end of all this, like I said, it fell in the certified rewatchable category. Let the comments go crazy for the, cultists who have to have everything this way or that way, and they can't seem to do anything but black and white. You know who you are, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you're probably better off for it. But I'm not a cultist of any director. I like a movie because I like a movie. That is the end of the final verdict. Again, certified rewatchable. Before I hop off of here, I want to say again, I kind of want to lean into a little bit of questioning real fast. Those of you who love certain people in certain roles and certain directors at the helm, and you have decided that you're not going to accept anything else, and you're unable to allow yourself to appreciate anything else, and you are hopeful for the failure of anything else because it's not the thing that you want. And to that I say, maybe step back a little bit and think about how a very young, spoiled child would look at something not getting their way and kind of wanting to take their ball and go home and cry about it. I don't know how you can truly be a fan of the character of Superman and not at least hope for something to be great, and at least try to go enjoy something for what it is to the max that you can enjoy it. It doesn't have to be better than something else. You can always have your problems with it. I have my problems with certain things across the board on all of stuff. But this whole, like, culture of hate that surrounds the character of Superman in theaters, the theatrical, the live-action portrayal of Superman between this director and this universe and all this, like, it's really toxic to the overall. It's toxic for the overall, for like what we can get and what we can have. You know, we can't make the stuff ourselves. We can't do this ourselves. So what we can do is hope that the people that are in charge are going to make good decisions and give us the best that they can give us. We don't always have to think it's the best in our view, but we can at least appreciate what they're trying to do. And sometimes you just have to go, that one wasn't for me. You know, I'm glad that you liked it, but it wasn't for me. Or I wish you did like it. I really liked it. I'm sorry that you didn't. But whatever. I don't know why that can't be the approach. Why does everything have to be hate, 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 hate? It's not the way I like it, and it's not what I want. And so, therefore, I hope it all burns down, and I hope it all fails. And it's just a very childish and immature way of looking at everything. And if any of you hung on this long to hear that, I'm hoping that there are some people that did. And I'm hoping that my comments aren't full of people who just saw a thumbnail. From a YouTube perspective, I hope the comments aren't full of just people that saw a thumbnail and decided I'm going to comment before knowing anything about anything, which is kind of what happened with this film in particular. People decided to have a whole lot to say about it before they ever even saw it. And a lot of people still have a lot of stuff to say about it, even though they haven't seen it. So I wish that stuff would stop. And I know that it's not going to, because that's not the world we live in. But it's not something I'm going to participate in, and it's not something that this channel is going to be involved in, or that this podcast is going to be involved in. So I hope that those of you that are here and you understand and know and are aware of all the drama that surrounds the Superman character and the Snyderverse and the new DCU and all this kind of stuff, and wanting this person to play the character rather than this person, and yada, yada, yada. I hope that those of you who are here and listening feel the same, and you just simply want to be entertained, hopefully see good movies, and when it's not for you and it doesn't quite work for you, just say, hey, you know what? I hope next time it's better. And if you liked it and loved it, that's awesome too. Because art is subjective. Your thoughts are different than my thoughts. There is nothing objective about art. You see a picture differently than I see a picture. Again, I hope everybody that is hearing this and listening to me this far, I hope that we're all on the same page, and that all the hate and nonsense stays away from this. stuff from this podcast, from this YouTube channel, and because it's not something I will be drumming up and being a part of. All that said, that is the end of this episode. If you're listening on YouTube and you're not following, subscribed, go ahead and do that so that you will have a clue when the next stuff pops out. These are coming out Monday morning at 6 o'clock Central Time is when this will be on YouTube, and it's also when it will be on all your podcasting platforms for those that you listen to the podcast, otherwise for the audio podcast. And if you're doing it audio-wise on the podcast, then go follow and download those or like them or however all that works on whichever platform that you're on, so that that it helps us out, because all this is algorithmic, and if they don't see involvement, then they don't necessarily always put this stuff out to new people and go, hey, there's a new podcast here, or there's a new this, or hey, this might be a good suggestion for you, or whatever, like they do. So that stuff is all helpful, as you know, and if you wouldn't mind, it would be a great help if you would do all that. So I will see you next week. This is Rewatch or Return.